Welcome back, everyone. So what we're going to discuss now is the idea of functions. So up to this point, we've talked a little bit about how variables work, a little bit about how values in Python work. Right now, what we're going to discuss is how to take all of this to the next level. So we don't just only want to store values inside variables, but we also want to be able to work or operate on multiple pieces of information that might be stored within our variables. Once we work or operate on those, we then want to take the output from those operations and store them into other variables. And this is pretty much how we code. So coding just comes down to nothing more than just taking pieces of information and moving it all over the place from one procedure to the next procedure, which operates on that information. So the idea behind a basic function in Python is that and this is the same of any programming language, by the way, is that there's a few components here. The first is the name of the function itself. The name of the function tells Python what exactly it is we would like to do. The idea is we want to take pieces of information which we refer to as input, and basically we want to send that to a procedure. Python will then operate on that input and give us back one or a lot of different output. And that's the conceptual idea. So here's the easiest way to think about it. Imagine that you're looking at a car manufacturing facility. And as you may know, there's different steps to manufacture a car. And those steps take place in different stations. So we might have two stations on the assembly line, right? We may have the tire station and we may have the painting station. And a single car might go to the painting station. Some of it might be painted. Then it might go to, let's say, the tire station. The tires are put on. And then it might, let's say, go back to the painting station. So the thing to think about here in this example is that the guys working in the painting station, they don't know or care, for that matter, about how the tires are put on the car. They don't know what type of tires are put on the car. They don't know what torque was used to screw in the lug nuts. They don't know what lug nuts were used. The only thing that they know is that they gave the tire station the car and they got back out a car with tires on it. So this is similar to how functions in Python or any programming language for that matter work. We have a procedure. We know in some sense what the procedure does to the inputs. We don't know exactly how it operates on the inputs, but we know that it operates on them, and we know what exactly it is that that particular function does to the inputs. And then we know what type of outputs we're going to get back. So when we use functions in our code, the basic list of steps here is to think about, well, first, what is the name of the function and what is it that we're looking to do? So, for example, suppose I want to just print something onto the screen, in which case I would use the print function. And this is typical of a lot of programming languages. We open up with a parentheses and then we close with a parentheses. And in between the parentheses, we're going to pass inputs. If there's more than one input, we're going to separate multiple inputs by commas. And in some instances, we even give the inputs variable names or specify the inputs by variable names, although we're not going to do this here for most of our work. Now, what are we going to print? We can just print the, let's say, the literal. This is some text, okay? Highlight, Alt-Shift-D, and as you can see, it prints out this is some text. We worked with another function before, the input function, and what we can do is create a new variable called, let's say, t input. And what we want to do is grab the input from the user. And basically what we want to do is say to Python, hey, treat the input as a string. Okay, now you could do this for integer, by the way. I believe we did this earlier in the other video. Oh, we did not, and it did some inference there. But anyway, the point is that it's going to assume that the input is a certain data type. Here we're just saying, hey, assume that it's a string. So let's go line by line. The first line here calls the function input. And basically, this is going to go through a list of steps to basically display a blinking cursor on the screen waiting for the user to put an input. And once the user presses the enter button, this function input, with no inputs whatsoever, no pun intended, will give the text back to Python and store it in the variable t input. So let's just run that one line, okay? And as you can see, it's asking us for some input. So, hey, this is some input. All right, and so we gave it some input. Now, what we can do is basically pass the variable t input into the str function. Notice how we're doing that. We use the function name str and open parentheses. We pass the variable with the data that's stored in it, in this case it's text data, into the str function, and then we close it with a parentheses. That function is going to use our input, do something underneath, and then give us back an output. So in this case, the output is stored back into the same variable. And remember what we discussed in the last video, that variables are similar to like boxes. Now, of course, if we do the print, we can see, hey, this is some output. Okay, so in the next video, I'm actually going to continue on with a little bit more on functions.